Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Josh, just me for this one, but I want to talk to you about something kind of important, which is that Brig might not be as nerfed as people are thinking. A couple of people have spotted this already, I've seen comments about it already, don't worry. But this is something I've wanted to talk about for a little while, because when Brig's nerf started popping up on the PTR, especially the shield bash change, where she can't stun through barriers anymore, a lot of people are celebrating. It's like, yay, and some people are like, hang on, she's getting more healing, and oh, that's really bad, because she'll be better in tank comps, not really understanding how that heal change works, I think. And so I was like, oh, well, it's Brig's getting nerfed, hey, that's really cool. And then some pros went off to play on the PTR. They went to do what we call scrimming, which is like practicing, and the practicing in in preparation for the patches coming up. And some of them tweeted out about what they found, which was very, very scary to read, which is the unexpected buff that Brigitte has received also, with the inability to stun through barriers. So imagine this, right? You're a pro level player and you're playing, in tournaments, and most of these tournaments these days run what we call GOAT comps, 3-3 comps, triple tank, triple support. The linchpin of these comps is oftentimes the Brigitte. You need her to get stuns on stuff, it locks stuff down, it opens up earth shatters. That's sort of the big reason why you're seeing this change to her inability to bash through a barrier, because you don't want to just stunning Reinhardt, letting earth shatters go through like that, letting abilities go through. The Reinhardt oftentimes will get a Discord orb on him, for example, you stun him, and then suddenly he just blows up and explodes and dies, because that's kind of how these comps work. One of the saving graces of these comps is that you could oftentimes stun the Brigitte in retaliation. You get what's called a counter stun, where you stun her back. And honestly, the only way, most times, for most people, to kill a Brigitte is to stun her. But with this change, with the change to the shield bash, with it not going through barriers anymore, well, what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? It's pretty simple. You can no longer stun Brigitte. You can with a McCree, of course, but, that's the whole different kettle of fish, and we'll cover that soon. But Brig on Brig, they can no longer stun each other. If you just try and stun her, you keep your barrier up, even if after you press the stun button, right? You hold right mouse button, you click left click, and you charge forward with your shield, and you hit the enemy, and you keep your shield up. So that means if she wants to try and stun you, she can't, because she's just going to hit your barrier, and so nothing happens. If she hits a barrier, nothing happens. And the Brig can just keep her barrier up and walk back completely safely. She basically becomes, without some way of getting around her or getting past her, a 750 hit point hero with a 500 hit point barrier, 250 hit points in her body. So this is actually a problem. This is something that is scaring a lot of pros, because, well, sure, Tracer might be a little bit more open now, although armor is sort of the big problem. If you watch the video where me and Sty discuss Tracer's place in the game at the moment, you'll hear me sort of put forward the concerns that armor is really the core issue with Tracer. So Tracer might not be in a great place, because, once the Inspire comes off, once the ability, not Inspire, once Rally comes off, once that ultimate comes down, everyone gets some armor, well, suddenly, ladies and gentlemen, Tracer's doing not much damage at all, so Tracer's still struggling. Brigitte, sure, she's doing a little bit less damage, she's not doing quite as much with the shield bash, she can't quite stun Reinhardt as easily. She could still probably find ways to do it with speed boosts and clever use of that, but you can no longer punish a Brigitte either. You can no longer just stun her down, lock her down, and get the kill on her. So she's going to be up longer, and she's going to be just producing that healing non-stop. And as a result, she's going to be much harder to remove for teams. And this all comes back to, in my mind, the core issue with Brigitte, right? The core fundamental problem with Brigitte in terms of balance and design, which is that the counter for Brigitte at the moment is just either, Pharah is one good option, or it's another Brigitte. You need to have a Brig to beat a Brig, because you punished it by stunning her and then just overwhelming her. You couldn't quite get away with McCree, and I know that some people out there are like, well, McCree has a stun, surely McCree can do the same. The reason why McCree doesn't work against Brig is that McCree is very vulnerable when he's getting dove by more than one thing. So basically, if McCree gets run down by one thing, like a Tracer or a Genji or a Brig, sure, he's going to do great. And with the buff he has to his right click, one-on-one McCree versus Brig, McCree's in a really good place now, but it's very rare that that's going to actually end up happening, especially at those higher levels, especially where sort of the meta is defined and sort of built in a crucible of competition. That's really not going to be the case up there. What you're going to have instead is the McCree's going to throw a flashbang, and then the other four people are just going to kill him. Because that's sort of how you beat McCree. You don't dive in with one person, you dive in with five, and he can't deal with that. He doesn't, he can roll, and that's all he can do. He can't do anything cool like, dash away or deflect, or he can't, even do what Ash can do now, which is jump into the sky and leave behind a stick of dynamite that explodes and sets everyone on fire in a really cool, dramatic way. He can't do any of that. He just rolls. and then dies and just explodes. So it's not going to be really viable, right? The McCree option isn't really there. So what does that leave? Pharah? Well, Pharah has her own problems, and some maps don't work for Pharah and stuff like that. So what pros are concerned about, and what I'm concerned about as someone who watches, consumes, casts pro-level games, I'm concerned about, us going forward. The idea here, it feels like Blizzard are trying to do is like, okay, well, let's try and peel back some of this GOATS meta. Let's try and peel back some of this tank meta that sort of slipped in through Brigitte. And honestly, that's not really happening here. I will quickly address as well, like, the healing change. I've heard some people panicking that, oh, they've given Brigitte more healing, which isn't quite the case. I think that people don't quite understand how the healing change to Brigitte works, which is it increases the duration of Inspire. So basically the way it works is when Brigitte hits a target, everyone around her gets a pulse of healing. It basically applies a heal over time. If you played World of Warcraft, you have like Renew, then that's all it's applying. It's basically, she hits a target and it puts Renew on everybody. And if you just keep spamming a heal over time or Renew on someone, it doesn't actually heal them faster. It just refreshes the timer. And that's all Brigitte's doing. It just means that she basically has a longer timer before she needs to refresh again, which means that out of combat she's going to heal a little bit more, but in combat it's not going to make a jot of difference. She should still be healing. It's about the same. I think there is a slight tweak. It's like 0.66 more healing or something. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will, no matter what. I know what you like comments, so go nuts. But yeah, it's a real concern here, because the core issue here is that this doesn't push us away from that 3-3 meta, right? It doesn't push us away from, when in doubt, go GOATs. And that's really becoming a problem, because what's happening is now it's starting to filter through, right? It's dominated the pro tier for ages. It's dominated Grandmaster for ages. It's been slipping through Master for a good while. But now it's really starting to entrench through the lower levels. Like, Overwatch has a long bleed time of strategy, right? It takes a long time for strats on the highest level to sort of filter the way down and go through the lower ranks and then start making the way there. And, people don't play them right, but you don't really need to play GOATs properly. You don't really need to play it intelligently. You can just sort of smash people with it. And as a result, this strategy is just going to get more and more and more prevalent and be harder and harder and harder to deal with. And honestly, playing GOATs isn't that fun, right? I'm just going to say it. I know it's a bold, what a brave statement I've just made. Playing triple tank, triple support isn't the most fun thing in the world, right, ladies and gents? So I'd rather play a game where I can play Tracer, or I can play Genji, or I can play Soldier, or I can play Ashe. I'm so looking forward to playing Ashe. I really want to be able to play that hero. But as it is now, with the Brig change, that's not really gonna be viable, because even if you play Ashe, well, they just snowball with a 3-3 comp and you just lose. There's nothing you can do about it. So you might be thinking, oh, what do we do about this? How do we fix this? Where's the solution? Because surely the Brig change is kind of for the better, right? So how do we change this? Well, there's a couple of different approaches. First and foremost is just moving the burden off Brigitte, and moving it onto Reinhardt. So, for example, if you had Reinhardt more immune, like either immune to stuns with his shield up or something, or if you had him just resistant to stuns in some way, perhaps just making him feel more controlled, or putting diminishing returns on crowd control effects when they go onto him, so he builds up resistance over time. So you don't get those clips of Reinhardt's getting bounced around by like 4 different crowd control heroes, which tend to pop off every so often. And just giving Reinhardt ways to deal with Brigitte's, giving him ways to deal with the stuns coming in on him. Either that or you keep this change, but then you have to make it so that there is some way, like after you get the charge, if you do connect with a stun, the barrier drops. Right, you can't hold up the barrier for a couple of seconds. You sacrifice your barrier to get the stun, because that means there's counterplay available, right? That means that enemy Brigs can stun you. And that also means that we move off this situation where the only way to stop a Brig is by stunning her, right? Because if she can't barrier, then she's not that tanky, right? She's just 300 hit points at best with Inspire, or with, I keep mixing them up because Inspire and Rally kind of mean the same thing, right? They're kind of synonyms for each other. Sure, well, I guess they're not, but close enough, right? You get the idea. It's confusing. Anyway, with Rally, yes, even then, she's not that tanky. She's not overwhelmingly tanky, where if she stuns into an enemy team, she should be able to survive that. Because as it is now, it feels like Brig is just the unpunishable menace. The absolute unpunishable menace. It's the main source of frustration when dealing with Brigitte, aside from perhaps the crowd control aspect, but one of the key ones is the fact that you just feel helpless. You just feel completely helpless when she's just running you down, and it's very important, because I talk about this idea of like hero identity a lot, right? That Brigitte, if you think about her hero identity, what makes Brigitte Brigitte? What makes her feel like her? And she should be a protector. She should be a shield. She should be a support. She should be helpful and good and shiny and bright and fun and new. Instead, she feels like a bully at the moment. That's how she feels. She feels like she pins you to a wall and steals your lunch money. And you try and fight her back, and she sort of holds her hand on your forehead, and you can't reach her because her arm's longer. And so you can't do anything, and then she shield bashes you again and takes even more of your lunch money or something, right? That's how she feels when you're fighting against a Brig. If you're trapped in a small room against a Brig, you just feel, you're trying to shoot her, you're trying to headshot her, you're trying to do anything, and she's just holding mouse 1, clubbing you to death slowly, bashing you around with her shield. She's healing up, she doesn't give a damn. And now, well, one of the few options you had, which is if someone came along and had some crowd control, you could get, you had an opportunity. You go, oh, someone like grabs her, it's like goddamn Dragon Ball Z, Goku's grabbed her, and now you fire the special beam cannon through her or something. It's not the case, though, anymore, because if she just holds a barrier up and just backpedals out, she's gonna be fine. She's gonna be A-okay. And that's kind of scary. And so I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I like seeing this resurgence of, oh my god, Brig might be on the way out, but I also don't want to be unrealistic here. And I will say that I do think Brig is weaker against heroes like Tracer. She is weaker against heroes like Genji as well. She's weaker against a lot of heroes, but she's stronger against one of her hardest counters, which is herself. And fundamentally, that just seems really flawed to me. It just seems really wrong to me that she should be so strong against herself, and as a result, you end up having to run mirrors constantly. I want to know what you guys think about this. I want to know if you guys do see Brig versus Brig pretty often. Actually, just to finish off, while I have like a platform to rant about Brig, one more thing I want to rant about Brig about that I don't think is quite solved yet, might be solved. I really want to see more time with this. But that's, if I'm playing support and I swap to Brig, I feel like I'm not getting enough healing. It really does feel, and this is why I'm encouraged by the changes, actually. Like, this is actually a good tailing off point, right? I'm encouraged by the changes that Blizzard are trying to make. And what they're trying to do is reduce her tanky presence and put more healing into her, make her feel more like a support. Because the big issue is this: if I'm playing Zen, and our team needs a Brig, like they're playing Tracer and I'm playing Zen, and I go, guys, we need a Brig, it feels bad if I'm the one that swaps. Right, if it's Zen Lucia or Zen Moira, and I swap to Brig, it feels like suddenly we've lost tons of healing, we've lost tons of sustainability on our team. It feels like the guy playing Widowmaker should swap. It feels like the guy playing Junkrat should swap. It feels like the guy playing DPS should swap to Brig. And surely that isn't right. Maybe I'm completely off on that one, maybe I'm completely wrong on that one, but that's certainly how it feels, and that's certainly how it seems to be going in the pro level scene as well. Alright guys, I want to know your thoughts on this as well. Maybe I'm way off the mark, maybe this is the best thing since sliced bread, but I really do fear that this change isn't changing the meta away from 3-3, but it's rather entrenching 3-3's presence by making Brig so much more powerful in that composition, so much harder to deal with, and as a result, she's just gonna be everywhere. Alright guys, thank you for watching to the end. I've been Josh, as one voice amongst many, and I'll see you next time. Doodles.